American supermarkets have never lacked food, but millions of people are lacking the power of choice. If last month you could still buy familiar items, this month, very likely, you are left only with things you do not want to buy. The shelves are still full, but your shopping cart is different. You spend more time in the store. You compare prices more. You read labels more carefully. And you weigh every small decision. This is not a crisis. This is the silent phase shift of the American supply chain. And in times like these, it is not luxury foods that disappear first, but the things you use every day. 10. Butter is the soul of the American kitchen. From baked goods, pancakes, and cookies, to a simple breakfast with a slice of warm bread. It is tied to family memories, slow mornings, and a familiar sense of comfort. But few people realize that butter is also one of the foods most sensitive to supply chain disruptions. Butter depends almost entirely on 4 factors: milk production, the cost of cattle feed, refrigerated systems, and transportation logistics. Just one weak link is enough for butter prices to rise rapidly, and for butter to disappear from store shelves in a short time. That is why butter often becomes one of the first items to be purchase limited when the market tightens. The winter of 2025 to 2026 is bringing together enough unfavorable factors: rising livestock feed prices, surging cold storage electricity costs, weakening milk production, and ongoing transportation disruptions. The result is that butter has become one of the most volatile items, both scarce and rapidly increasing in price. There was a time when butter was just something you casually tossed into the cart. But now, many people stand longer in front of the shelves, carefully reading labels, weighing each decision. Not because they want to save more, but because they want to hold on to a sense of control in their lives. One viewer left a very short comment. Butter can be stored for more than 6 months in the freezer. That is practical experience. Butter can be frozen for 6 to 9 months with almost no loss in quality, still working well for cooking and baking. Just a small freezer compartment, organized properly, is enough to carry you through an entire season of shortage without worry every time you shop. No need to stockpile large amounts, just enough to avoid being caught off guard. By keeping small things within reach, you keep your rhythm of life. And sometimes, in a world full of uncertainty, what we need most is not more, but greater stability. 9. Ground beef. This is the most sensitive item in the entire American food system. Not steak, not beef ribs, but ground beef. The United States currently has its smallest cattle herd in many decades. When the overall herd declines, the market does not immediately run out of beef. But volatility appears first in the ground beef segment, because demand is high, prices are sensitive, and its range of use is extremely broad. Even a small change in supply is enough to trigger a rapid chain reaction. The price of ground beef in my area has nearly doubled in just a few months, and the kind I usually buy keeps disappearing. Many people have shared this with concern. This is not an isolated case. When cattle supply declines, processing plants prioritize cutting steak and premium products first, because profit margins are higher. Ground beef, even though it is an essential item, becomes the first category to be purchase limited and regulated. Ground beef is the foundation of countless American meals: hamburgers, meatloaf, tacos, pasta, soup, meal prep. When it fluctuates, the entire household cooking routine is immediately affected. Not because there is no meat, but because flexibility is lost. For Americans over 50, ground beef is not just food. It is a convenient solution, easy to cook, easy to digest, and suitable for many diets. When prices rise quickly and choices shrink, the feeling of losing control becomes very real. A very simple way to maintain that sense of control is to buy in batches, portion it, vacuum seal it, and freeze it. Properly stored ground beef can maintain good quality for 6 to 12 months. No need for extreme stockpiling. Just create a safety buffer to avoid being caught off guard when prices swing sharply. Not to hoard, but to avoid rushing, to avoid panic, to avoid buying under price pressure. What is the current price of ground beef in your area? Leave a number so everyone can compare. If you find these analyses helpful, please tap like and subscribe so we can live more proactively, calmly, and steadily each day. 8. Tomatoes and tomato products. Last November, Linda, 63, living in Fresno, the heart of California's Central Valley, had to drive to 4 different supermarkets just to find a few cans of tomato sauce for a weekend dinner. She said, "I never thought something so familiar would one day become something I had to hunt for." And at that moment, she realized the supply chain around her was cracking piece by piece. California supplies nearly 95% of processed tomatoes for the United States. But the 2025 to 2026 season has taken a double hit from prolonged drought, sharply rising irrigation costs, and extreme temperatures that have driven yields down dramatically. Many farms have been forced to shrink acreage, prioritizing higher profit crops, causing tomato supplies for sauce, soup, ketchup, and pizza to plunge. At the same time, transportation and cold energy costs continue to surge. A can of sauce that once seemed cheap now carries added fuel costs, cold storage electricity, and packaging expenses. The result is fewer choices on shelves, smaller cans, familiar labels disappearing in rotation, and prices that rise slowly but relentlessly. The danger lies here. Tomatoes are not just food, but the foundation of hundreds of family meals. When they become scarce, the entire kitchen ecosystem is stretched. Pasta, soup, pizza sauce, stews, canned foods, even fast meals all suffer chain reactions. Many processing plants have begun altering formulas, increasing additives to preserve flavor. That means uneven quality, blander taste, and shorter shelf life than before. A very simple way to maintain control is to take advantage of fresh tomatoes while prices are still reasonable. Make sauce at home, portion it, and freeze it. Just a few ice trays can produce dozens of portions to use gradually over many months. For apartment dwellers, even a single cherry tomato plant on the balcony can create a small psychological and nutritional buffer. Not to fully replace, but to avoid being caught off guard. In an unpredictable world, preparation is not excessive stockpiling, but keeping more options in your hands. Where are you? And is tomato sauce still easy to buy this week? 7. Eggs. Especially cage-free and organic eggs almost never disappear completely. But the types you are used to buying disappear first. Cage-free, organic, omega-3 brown eggs. The choices once considered standard for a healthy diet become the most sensitive group whenever the supply chain shakes. Unlike conventional industrial eggs, premium egg lines depend heavily on feed costs, barn heating electricity, and flock health. When grain prices rise, electricity increases, or weather turns harsh, production costs surge rapidly, forcing many farms to cut output. Every winter, eggs are always among the items most clearly affected. Low temperatures reduce laying rates. Heating systems drive electricity costs sharply higher. Meanwhile, seasonal avian flu outbreaks continue to appear, causing millions of chickens to be culled to prevent spread. The result is that premium egg shelves empty first. What is noteworthy is that eggs do not disappear suddenly. They disappear in layers. Organic first, then cage-free, followed by brown eggs, and finally, the familiar cartons begin to face purchase limits. By the time you realize your shopping habits have changed, the shelves are no longer as full as before. One viewer shared, "I have been freezing eggs since the 1970s. They work very well for frying and baking. That is practical experience passed down through generations. Eggs can be beaten, portioned, and frozen for many months, with almost no impact on quality." In addition, powdered milk, flaxseed meal, and oats are also flexible options that can partially replace the role of eggs in many cooking and baking recipes. What matters is not having a large quantity of eggs in the refrigerator, but having eggs at the right time. When replacement options are prepared in advance, short-term fluctuations no longer place pressure on daily life. And sometimes, small acts of preparedness in the kitchen bring the greatest sense of peace of mind. 6. Orange juice and fresh oranges. Florida, the orange capital of the United States, is experiencing its lowest production period in nearly a century. Prolonged drought, consecutive hurricanes, widespread plant disease, and rising transportation costs are simultaneously placing heavy pressure on the entire citrus industry. Oranges depend strongly on stable climate conditions and long growth cycles. Just one bad weather season can cause damage that lasts not only months, but years. Many aging orange groves are being removed faster than new ones are planted, causing supply to shrink steadily. As a result, orange juice and fresh oranges are gradually becoming a winter luxury item. Shoppers see fewer choices, smaller package sizes, higher prices, and less consistent flavor. Some brands have begun blending fruit from multiple regions to compensate for shortages. This especially affects older adults who are accustomed to a daily glass of orange juice as part of their health routine. When familiar products become unpredictable, many people are forced to adjust their daily nutrition habits. One viewer shared, "Last Christmas season, I could not find cranberries even after visiting multiple stores. Shortages do not arrive loudly. They unfold quietly, until the moment you truly need something, and only then do you realize it." There is a simple way to maintain control: frozen orange juice concentrate. The frozen concentrate form stores well, maintains stable quality, and allows easy cost control. Just a few small containers in the freezer are enough to sustain a daily orange juice habit for many months. In addition, backup vitamin C supplements, lemon juice, lime, or apple cider vinegar are all flexible options to supplement nutrients without significantly changing flavor preferences. When familiar things become unpredictable, preparing one step ahead makes life much lighter. 5. Whole coffee beans. Last winter, Mike, 61, living in Spokane, Washington, walked into his usual supermarket to buy the bag of whole coffee beans he had been drinking for more than 10 years. A small habit repeated every morning. But that day, the shelf was empty. No sign, no substitute product. 3 weeks later, he returned, and nothing had changed. He said, "I never thought the day would come when my coffee would disappear so quietly. Coffee rarely disappears all at once. It disappears in parts, by product lines, by formulas." Brazil and Vietnam currently account for more than 60% of global coffee production. But both are under heavy pressure from prolonged drought, record high temperatures, and extreme weather. When yields decline, roasters do not stop production. They adjust blends, change bean ratios, and shift sourcing to keep prices stable. That is why many Americans recently feel that coffee is still there, but the taste is different. More bitter, more sour, thinner, not because their palate has changed, but because the formula has been altered. Arabica is gradually replaced by Robusta. Premium beans are reduced. Drinkers are not warned. They only realize when their morning cup no longer brings that familiar comfort. At the same time, transportation, roasting, and storage costs are rising rapidly. Coffee is one of the most logistics-sensitive commodities. Just a small bottleneck in the supply chain is enough to send retail prices jumping within weeks. For Americans over 50, coffee is not just a drink. It is the rhythm of the morning. A quiet moment before the day begins. A sense of control over one's daily routine. When coffee changes, a feeling of unease quietly follows. There is a very simple way to preserve that sense of control. Buy whole coffee beans. Store them airtight, away from light and heat. Cold brew can reduce ground coffee use by about 30%. Chicory and mushroom coffee are becoming increasingly popular backup options. Which state are you in? And what is the price of coffee this week? Leave a number so everyone can compare. 4. Canned foods. Last December, Linda, 67, living in Toledo, Ohio, walked into her local supermarket to buy a few cans of chicken soup and canned beans for snowy days. She did not see empty shelves, but she saw purchase limits, 2 cans per item. At that moment, I understood that the problem was not demand. It was supply, she said. Canned foods rarely disappear all at once. They disappear in layers, by product lines, by familiar brands. The reason is not the food inside, but the metal can itself. Each can is a combination of aluminum, steel, energy, and transportation. When metal prices rise, electricity costs surge, and logistics become congested, the entire chain shakes at once. Many canning plants are currently operating at only 60 to 70% capacity, not because they lack raw ingredients, but because they lack cans. When cans become scarce, companies are forced to prioritize their fastest-selling products, gradually eliminating slower lines. Consumers do not see a crisis. They only see fewer choices. In every major disruption, canned foods are always among the first groups to disappear. Not because they are rare, but because every household returns to the basics: beans, fish, soup, canned meat. These are foods that do not require electricity, are easy to store, easy to prepare, and suitable for all ages. That very convenience causes demand to surge within just a few days. For Americans over 50, canned food is not just emergency supplies. It is peace of mind. It is knowing that even when the weather turns bad, roads are disrupted, or stores temporarily close, there is still a hot meal at home. There is a very simple way to preserve that sense of control. Each time you shop, add 1 or 2 cans to your cart. Beans, tuna, soup, canned meat. No need for extreme stockpiling. Just build a 3 to 6 month buffer. It is enough to keep you from panicking when shelves begin to thin. Which canned item do you stock most often? Leave a comment so everyone can learn from each other. 3. Frozen foods. Last winter, Carol, 64, living in Michigan, had to throw away nearly all the food in her freezer after a power outage that lasted more than 36 hours. Not because there was a lack of food, but because the entire cold chain collapsed overnight. At that moment, I understood that frozen does not always mean safe, she shared. Frozen foods depend entirely on 3 factors: electricity, cold storage, and refrigerated transportation. Just a rise in electricity prices, a reduction in cold storage capacity, or a transportation disruption is enough to shake the entire chain. It is not a shortage of food, but a shortage of stable cold preservation. As winter 2026 approaches, soaring electricity costs are forcing many cold storage centers to scale back operations. When cold storage capacity is reduced, companies cut back on stored items, prioritizing fast-selling and high-margin products. Consumers do not see empty shelves, but they see fewer choices, smaller package sizes, higher prices, and inconsistent quality. This directly affects Americans over 50, a group that relies heavily on frozen foods to save cooking time and maintain regular meals. When frozen foods become expensive and unstable, the sense of losing control over daily routines appears very quickly. The issue is not storing as much as possible. The issue is choosing the right things to keep. Not all frozen foods deserve space in the freezer. A simple strategy to maintain control is to prioritize only 3 foundational groups: frozen vegetables, frozen fruit, and basic meats. These are the most flexible, easiest to prepare, lowest risk, and suitable for all ages. Avoid luxury frozen foods such as pizza, prepared meals, and fast food. They consume electricity, take up space, and depend heavily on the cold chain. A freezer is not meant to be crammed full. It exists to keep life from being disrupted. A tidy, selective freezer helps you stay proactive through volatility without panic. What does your freezer currently store the most? Leave a line so everyone can share and compare. 2. Breakfast cereals. One morning in early January, Susan, 62, living in Arizona, stood for a long time in front of her familiar cereal shelf. The brand she had been buying for more than 10 years had disappeared. No notice, no replacement. Only a few fast-selling flavors remained, in smaller boxes and at higher prices. I did not see a lack of food. I only saw my breakfast being changed, she said. Breakfast cereals may seem simple, but they depend on an entire long chain: wheat, corn, sugar, packaging, transportation, and marketing. When costs rise across the board, companies do not stop production. They cut product lines first. Slow-selling flavors and older formulas disappear first. That is why in 2025 to 2026, shelves still look full, but variety drops sharply. Shoppers see fewer choices, smaller sizes, and higher prices. Not a shortage, but a narrowing. For Americans over 50, cereal is not just a quick breakfast. It is a routine that helps the body start the day. When that routine is disrupted, a sense of instability appears, even though many other options still exist. The problem is not a lack of food. It is the loss of familiar things that help us feel secure. A more sustainable direction is to return to the basics: oats, granola, and homemade frozen breakfast burritos. These options are cheaper, keep you full longer, are easier to control nutritionally, and depend less on brands. Many families have switched to overnight oats, homemade granola, or meal-prepped burritos for the week. Nothing fancy, but they help maintain a steady rhythm of life. Breakfast does not need to be complicated. It only needs to be consistent, simple, and easy to sustain. That is what helps us stay grounded through years of volatility. What is your usual breakfast? Share one item so everyone can compare. 1. Chocolate and cocoa. More than 70% of the world's cocoa comes from West Africa, and this region is experiencing its most severe drought in many decades. Less rainfall, higher temperatures, prolonged dry soil. Cocoa trees are weakening. Yields are falling sharply. Cocoa prices on the global market have reached record highs. When the main ingredient becomes more expensive, chocolate companies do not stop production. They reduce the cocoa ratio in their formulas, increase sugar, change fats, and shrink product sizes. Consumers are not informed. They simply notice one very clear thing: chocolate no longer tastes as rich as before. One viewer commented, "Chocolate lately tastes sweeter, melts faster, and no longer has the deep flavor it had a few years ago." That is not a personal impression. It is the direct result of cutting real cocoa to preserve profit margins. Valentine's Day and Easter drive chocolate demand sharply higher, right as supply weakens. When demand rises while supply falls, the market reacts very quickly. Higher prices, fewer choices, and volatile quality. This is the period when chocolate changes most noticeably each year. For Americans over 50, chocolate is not just a sweet treat. It is tied to memories, holidays, gifts, and family moments. When familiar flavors disappear, a sense of loss quietly appears, even though no one calls it a shortage. A more proactive approach is to shift toward pure cocoa powder and baking chocolate. These forms are more stable, less subject to formula changes, and more flexible in use. Buying early helps avoid peak holiday price spikes. Chocolate will not disappear, but its familiar version is changing very quickly, and consumers are often the last to realize. Do you feel that chocolate tastes different lately? Leave a line to share. The 10 products just mentioned are not meant to make you anxious. They simply help you see more clearly the very quiet changes taking place in everyday life. When you understand correctly, you do not need to rush to buy. No need for extreme stockpiling. No need to live in constant unease. You only need to keep control in your own hands. Control in your choices, control in your daily habits, control in how you prepare for what may come. In a rapidly changing world, the most precious thing is not having more, but keeping stability for yourself. If you find this video helpful, please tap like so more people can clearly see the changes taking place. And if you want to continue receiving clear, honest, and easy-to-understand analysis, please subscribe so we can live more proactively, more calmly, and more steadily each day.